Hello, my name is Steven. This is my audience, September, Caden, Stella, and Steve. And this is my final speech on our call to action, which I chose to do physician-assisted suicide. If you are suffering from an illness that will eventually take your life, would you rather battle through the pain so it can kill you later on, or would you like to be able to decide when you want to end all of the suffering? The issue involving physician-assisted suicide, or euthanasia, has been intensely debated for quite a while now. The people that support this practice believe that you should die a dignified death. The other side counters with quotes, ethics, theories to protest against it. My call to action will argue that this should be legal federally by providing an ethical perspective in support of an assisted death. By the end of this speech, I hope that my audience has realized that assisted death is something that we should all have it as an option under the right circumstances. Physician-assisted suicide is an alternative given to terminally ill patients that typically have 6 months or less to live. While opponents of this practice say that palliative care is the best method for terminally ill patients, supporters claim that this type of care is not always practical for someone to have such care for an extended period of time. Also, palliative care is not even available for prolonged periods in non-urban areas. Those who are against the practice also argue that there aren't enough safeguards to prevent abuse, and nor is there some form of review about the actions of a physician. Most churches and religious organizations are also opposing the bill on religious grounds. From the viewpoint of palliative medicine, Ashby states that the toughest obstacle for physicians who decide to participate in assisted suicides come from a society that expects these physicians to lengthen their lives through medicine that only masks pain and suffering that these patients go through. Yet palliative care prefers assisted suicide to prolonged periods of time results in deterioration and pain. In doing so, the viewpoint aims to retain and restore human dignity in death rather than the extreme manner of suffering that one could be exposed to if one continues to survive on assisted methods and medication. Ashby strongly feels that while causation is an important aspect, one cannot choose whether one dies or not, but instead can have a substantial say in how one dies, and this aspect of how that can be controlled and which gives a patient a choice in those moments of pain and suffering. The mental distress that someone experiences due to such bad health problems far exceeds the ethical aspects that people say are the reason it shouldn't be allowed. This is the reason physician-assisted suicide is already legal in Switzerland, Netherlands, and in a few states in the United States of America. In fact, in most places, the general public has supported these pro-physician-assisted suicides in order to lend a certain amount of dignity to those patients in their moments of pain and suffering. Most people would counter euthanasia with quotes from religious doctrines as well as ethical pointers that are heavily against the practice of assisted death. For example, the act of suicide is a sin in Christianity, since the very act lies contrary to the gift of life given by God. In response to that, one could put forth the right of choice. We should have the choice of whether one should continue to live through painful therapies and medications or choose to die, which is a choice that should solely lie with the patient. Another argument on assisted deaths is that the practice has resulted in most terminally ill patients choosing the proper route rather than exercising options that are illegal or dangerous to others. For instance, the effect of such a pro-euthanasia law in Switzerland has resulted in a massive dip in the number of suicides. Further, it has also been observed in most of these regions that a large number of these patients who inquire about physician-assisted suicides, only a small number actually end up completing the entire process to the end. This makes you start to realize that this is a choice that a patient could ideally resort to if one's condition does not improve. Having examined these various aspects as well as practical views on physician-assisted suicide, this speech would proceed to examine a couple of ethical viewpoints on the subject. If one considered John Stuart Mill's perspective on the subject, the opinion would vary based on the relative viewpoints that one takes. For instance, if euthanasia results in the end of pain and suffering, and the maximization of happiness for the suffering subject, then such physician-assisted suicide is ethically right, which supports the fact that it is one's right to decide if they would like to put an end to the pain and suffering they are going through. When you think about it, if this is right or wrong, look in a few different ways. The first way would be to put yourself in a sick person's situation. All you do is lay in a hospital bed every day as the doctors keep you alive with medicine just to ease the pain until your body finally gives up. Is that how you would want to spend the last few months of your life, or would you rather just cut straight to the end while you still have some dignity left? The next situation would be to put yourself in the shoes of someone who is sitting there helpless as they watch their mom or dad suffer through the pain while bedridden in a hospital. As you watch their health deteriorate till they eventually die a slow and painful death, I don't think that any of those options sound like an ideal situation to end someone's life. To counter this, one would consider Kantian ethics, as one is aware of the ethics depend strongly on maxims, and in such case, the following maxim would be applicable. We should have the option to end one's life if we so choose to end the life of our own. Clearly, if one supports this idea, it becomes one's duty to follow this maxim in an event when one is suffering from indignity and pain. While Kant is opposed to suicide, utilitarian ethics comes to the rescue since it does not consider the intent of the person who is choosing physician-assisted suicide. One can see from this argument that combined elements of ethics support euthanasia, but only in exceptional circumstances where the pain and suffering experienced by a patient far exceeds the reason that such a person to be kept alive. In conclusion, we understand that physician-assisted suicide are an important option that we as society must provide to our ill and suffering citizens. While one could put in safeguards and such counters to prevent abuse, nevertheless a choice must be given to those who wish to exercise it. From an ethical perspective, one can understand that ethics and parts of utilitarianism do support the practice of physician-assisted suicide. Yet most ethical theories do not take into account human suffering or possible intent. However, for the perspective of human dignity and to alleviate suffering, one must still offer a choice of physician-assisted suicide to those who wish to choose the same. Such a step would be both an ethical and human step for society to those who are suffering and in pain. Thank you all for listening. Here's my audience still. Thank you very much.